The Echoes of Love is a haunting story of passion and romance set in Venice. Well, The Echoes of Love is the story of two people who've been hurt by life and by love, and who are still haunted by the echoes of those tragedies. I know Venice very well. I went to Venice for the first time as a child, and the richness and beauty of the city left a lasting impression. I've been back there many times since, and every time I'm fascinated by the richness of the architecture, the opulence of the palaces, the romance of the canal, the charm of the Venetian people, and that inspires me. That's why I write about them, because I love them. As I've said, Venice is a beautiful city. It's an elemental city of stone and water, and the people of Venice are its fire that bring it to life. It is also a romantic city, and I'm a writer of romance. But it's not only because of its romance that I chose to set my story in Venice. Venice wears a mask, and behind the mask there is the decay of a sinking city. And I was aware of that even as a child, when my parents took me for the first time to St. Marco's Square. When I arrived there, I thought I had stepped into fairyland, because everything was so big, so opulent, so beautiful. But one thing disturbed me, and that were the pigeons. I found there were too many of them, and they frightened me. So it left a sort of an impression that Venice was not quite as beautiful as it seemed. And when I went back there later on, I was struck by the same impression, and I realized that I was right as a child, that there was something a little sinister about Venice, because it is a sinking city, and behind the beauty there is all the decay. I needed a city that was two-faceted for the echoes of love, and so what better place than Venice to set my plot. In The Echoes of Love, Paolo is really Venice. Venetia meets a charismatic entrepreneur, a millionaire who's self-confident, who's charming, but really inside, Paolo is a broken man. He's been badly hurt by life and by love, and he is struggling to hide a secret which is so devastating that it could tear apart Venetia and him forever. Venetia is a passionate woman. She represents the passion I have for Venice. She's an architect and a restorer of mosaics, so she can concretely do something for Venice, while she is much more powerful than I am, while I'm only a writer and I can only describe it and how I see it and how I feel about it. She is also a very sensitive woman. She has been hurt by life and by love, again like Paolo, and she has set around herself a high wall to guard herself against emotions, and she's very wary of men. And that's why she fights her love for Paolo for a very long time. But as soon as she realizes that she loves him and that he loves her too, so she gives full range to her passion. She's sensitive and kind and understanding about the problems that she knows about Paolo, because there's a hell of a lot that she doesn't know. I was fascinated by the carnival. Venice comes to life during carnival time. Everybody in the road is wearing masks. They're fantastic, beautiful masks that have always fascinated me. They are mysterious. They're very eerie too. And when you experience them en masse, it's as if you've stepped into a surreal world. I loved it, and I do recommend the experience. It takes me 9 months to write a book. It's exactly as if I'm giving birth to a child. I wrote Burning Embers in 9 months, and The Echoes of Love also took me 9 months to write. I wrote the first chapter in England, in Kent, and part of it, I think, in Egypt. Then most of it I wrote in France, sitting in my bedroom, overlooking the beautiful scenery of the Mediterranean and the blue sky. And the last chapter I wrote back in England, sitting in this room in the library, overlooking the garden at my desk. My father and my grandmother were both published writers. They always encouraged me to read and to write, and were always very interested in what I wrote. My father always predicted that I would be a published writer one day. Unfortunately, he died before he could see my dream come true, and that's a great sadness to me. If I had to give advice to someone who was starting to write, I would tell that person to write from the heart, write what you know about. I have a motto, which is a quote by Toni Morrison: if there is a book that has not been written yet and that you would like to read, you must write it. If I could take 3 books to a desert island, the first one would be The Far Pavilions by M.M. Kay. She's a wonderful writer who I have tried to emulate. The Far Pavilions is set in India. I've never been to India, but reading that book, I felt I was there. I could smell the fragrances, the spices. I could imagine the beautiful scenery. I lived the love story. The second book I would take would be Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I love that book because the hero is human. And that's what I try to do with my hero and heroine. They are not perfect. My hero is not an alpha male. My heroine is not a sweet young girl who has no problems and no flaws. They are human like we are, so we can recognize ourselves in them. The third book I would take would be Alice in Wonderland. That book has poetry, it has fantasy, it has humor, it has everything. You can't be bored with a book like that. My next book is a trilogy, and it's set in Spain, another flamboyant country, and it will be published after The Echoes of Love. I love Spain, I love its people, I love the cuisine, and I love everything about it.